Hey everyone, welcome back to the Chefpreneur podcast. I'm your host, Andre Sinahosa. Thanks for tuning in again today. Well, I have a special guest for you all on this podcast episode. We're going to be interviewing Jordan Mendoza. He is the CEO and founder of Blaze Your Own Trail Consulting. Also hosts an amazing podcast called Blaze Your Own Trail, and I'm just really excited to have you on the show today. Welcome, Jordan.
Hey, no worries, man. I appreciate the opportunity. Anytime I can share my story and journey with the hopes to inspire other people, that's my goal, man. It's a positive impact.
That's awesome, brother. Well, first, I just want to start off with just asking a little bit about just who you are, man, just so that the audience knows who it is that they're listening to today.
Yeah, no, I love that. And that's one of my favorite things to do is I think it's so important that we talk about our origin story, and a lot of that for me, it stems from, the two people that have really made the most significant impact in my life, which was my mom and then also my dad. So I'd love to just kind of share a little bit about them, and that will give you guys a deeper context into really who Jordan is. So my mom actually, kind of crazy story. She was born in the 50s, 1958, with one lung. And when she was born, the doctor said, definitely not going to live to be 18. You're not going to be able to have any kids because of the, capacity it'll have on your body. And that was kind of the cards that she was dealt. But she wasn't going to go away easy. She was a fighter. She ended up having 5 boys and living to 54 years old. So she took that, hand of cards that was dealt and said, you know what, I may have got all jokers, but I'm going to get a royal flush real quick. And I'm going to kind of flip the script on this. And man, she taught me so much about being positive, having a sense of humor, having empathy. When you're a kid and you go to the hospital and you're playing, you're playing games on a notepad and you're writing things back and forth because she couldn't talk, man, you learn a lot about empathy. You learn a lot about having a heart for people. And I saw her get sick a ton when I was a kid and almost die. And thank God she lived as long as she did. But man, she just taught me so much about just how to be myself, how not to let my circumstances define me. And when you can, surround yourself with a person like that, that's positive, even in the face of adversity. We were on food stamps, free lunches. I mean, we were poor, but I didn't feel like it because she showed us a lot of love. And so that's mom, that's a big influence in my life. She was my best friend up until her passing. She got sick, unfortunately, in 2011, and it was the trifecta. It was heart, lungs, kidney, all kind of took effect. And within over a 5-month period, she just passed away. And man, when I tell you, brother, like that 6 months after she died, it was probably the darkest place I had been in, like in hindsight, because I was going through the motions. I remember I was managing a luxury apartment building, almost 600 units. I had a team of 24. And I don't remember driving to work or driving home every day. Like I was just in this fog and I felt like I had no purpose anymore. I felt like I didn't have that confidant. But God is good, man. And he kind of snapped me out of that. And when I kind of started to see the light and kind of get back to being myself and being more positive and looking at optimism again, that's when everything started to change. I got a job in corporate. I stayed in that role 8 years. And I learned, man, in that time, so many things about being a leader, how to do video editing. I learned all these skill sets. And I didn't know, Andres, that I was being equipped for what I do today. But that's exactly what it was. So that's just a little bit about mom and my journey. My dad, man, I didn't even meet him till I was 12. So just, picture this, for the listeners, you are living your life and you're poor. You grow up with a mom with adversity, some brothers, and not such a great area. And all of a sudden you're 12 and your dad wants to enter your life. That's not an easy thing to deal with at 12, but I had to take the high road, and you'll hear in my story and my journey, I've done this a lot, and I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the right thing to take that high road and have a little bit of empathy because I didn't know my dad's situation. I didn't know what he was going through. So when my mom said, "Hey, do you want to go out to DC and meet your dad?" I was 12 and I was like, "Yeah, let's go." She's like, "No, you're going by yourself." I was like, okay, let me go meet this guy. And I flew from Portland to, never forget this trip, Portland, Minneapolis, St. Paul, into Washington National. And I land on Washington National and walk out, and there's a bunch of Asian people standing in front of me. My dad's from the Philippines, and I didn't identify as Asian. I didn't identify I thought I was white, because I grew up with a mom with blonde hair and green eyes, the last name Lynch, so I just thought I was a white kid. And so I meet this family, and I get to learn about my dad, and man, some of the stories he told me about being 7 years old and working in the rice fields with caribou, and then, wanting to become go in the Philippine Army, and then he became a seaman, and he traveled painting ships, and then he said, you know what, I want a piece of that American dream. And man, he jumped ship in the 80s, got a job at a landscaping company for a couple of years, and then launched his business, which he's had for over 40 years. So he taught me a lot about hard work, about grit, about determination, the importance of details, paying attention to details. And so, man, those two people have really influenced me and who I am. And I know you got some questions for me, and I'd love to share a little bit later the 4 pivotal moments that I think have also really shaped me.
Man, thank you so much. There's a lot to unpack there. And it's funny because we know each other, right? We're good friends. Just to let everybody know, right? Jordan goes to our church, but he's an amazing man of God, amazing man of faith. But he's also an expert in social media marketing. We'll get into that in a minute. And which I know he could bring a lot of value to you guys as well, listening to this podcast. But it's funny, Jordan, because, again, we know each other, but I didn't realize there was even more similarities than even previous to this conversation. My mom, again, I've told my story here on this podcast several times, and constantly kind of referring back to that. My mother as well, she, didn't have any of those health issues per se with her lungs and things like that. However, she almost died when I was 11 years old, and it was a really tragic thing. She almost died several times in her life, and it felt like the devil kind of wanted her out of this world. And it felt like there was so much adversity towards her. And my dad, who, again, was out of the picture a little bit when they got a divorce. Again, it wasn't as similar as you, where you didn't know you're really kin and your dad until you were 12. But it's just crazy how some of these stories are kind of correlating, because my mom was always so positive as well. Even to this day, I call her and she calls me buddy, and she's like, I'm so proud of you. And it's nonstop encouragement, when realistically someone like that shouldn't even be that happy per se. Yeah. Right. And then, as you said, kind of growing up, I think it sounds like 5 brothers, right? 5 boys. Is that what you said?
5 boys,
right?
Yeah. Mom had 5 boys.
And then me and you both have 5 kids, right? So it's we're in that 5 kid club, which a lot of people think we're crazy, but this is our life. Entrepreneurship and family is what we do. But it's crazy. And again, I really appreciate you diving into that, because again, so many people, especially here, the audience that are these passionate chefs and cooks, they're wanting to go out, they're wanting to take action, do something for themselves. And let's face it, life has adversities. Life comes at you in multiple waves. And sometimes you feel like you're just trying not to drown. And so it's hard sometimes to push on. And so I appreciate you sharing that part of your story. Tell us a little bit about your journey into now where you are with, sounds like you were doing some things with real estate, it sounds like, but also then from your father, you kind of started getting some of that, learning that work ethic. But how did you kind of land now to having this voice in an amazing podcast yourself? As you guys can see right now, he has like the whole setup. I'm here in my office. So again, I feel like I'm interviewing like a podcast guru, right? And so I'm very honored today to bring you to our audience as well. But just tell us a little bit about how you kind of landed now a little bit where you are now, and just kind of tell us a little bit about that part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it all stems back from being a kid. One of the things my mom always used to tell me is, she's like, you were born and then you never stopped talking, and it's funny because, my 10-year-old London, like, she talks way more than me, and her and I bump heads a lot because we're so similar. I don't know if you have anyone can relate to that.
Yeah, that's one of my daughters. Yep, that's me and Tia.
And it's tough, man. It's tough to deal with that. But again, I've got to put my ego aside and my pride aside and step up to the plate, because I'm the dad. I got to be that father figure for her.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Another little point. I didn't have that as a kid, so I don't know what the heck I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't have that. And so we're out here figuring this stuff out. And if any of you are out there and you have kids or you don't have kids, like, you don't know, and nobody knows. Like, your kids are going to be unique. They're all individual. And no matter what someone tells you, like, hey, do this and that, you got to figure it out for yourself. I'm sure Andres will say that to you as well. But yeah, man. So when I was a kid, like, we were poor, bro. So like, I would literally go knock on doors and get people's cans, because in Oregon, you get 5 cents a can. And I knew if I could go get 5 cans real quick, I could go buy some candy. So I was hustling for free for stuff. And
You were
then
a hustler.
that turned into soccer and baseball. I hated the sports. Everyone always said I had like the perfect name for a soccer or a baseball player, Jordan Mendoza, and they're probably right. But I love selling the candy bars and the beef jerky. Like that was my thing. I loved the actual fundraising side and was, kicking up daisies and playing with butterflies in the field. And so I knew I had this ability to, look somebody in the eyes, smile at somebody, read people, relate to them. I've always had that ability. And my first job in a middle school at 14 is I went door to door and I sold newspaper subscriptions. And it was
Wow.
the daily, the weekly, or the daily and Sunday, where we would try to get people to, upsell. And I literally, at 14 years old, would go out and hear 100 people tell me no a day. And one big lesson, man, was on that first day. And I wasn't alone, bro. Like my buddy Steve from down the street was with me, my brother David, this guy named Jim Franks. I'll never forget this guy. He would pick us up in his little pickup truck. He would take us to Burger King. He had these cards, and it would get us a Whopper and a milkshake and a fry. I mean, like best job ever, right? So we go our first day, we eat our Whopper, our milkshake, our fry. He drops us off in a neighborhood. We get a little clipboard with these certificates, and we got to go knock on doors and sell people the paper, the newspaper. And there might be people that listen to this, they don't even know what the heck a newspaper is because it's been so long since we've read them, right?
Yeah.
But so we go out, and I remember like the first 10 doors, I was pumped. I was like, hey, my name is Jordan. It was like slam. And I'm like, all right, this is good. I'm good. And I'm like, hey, my name, boom, slam the door, right? And so by door 20, my attitude had started to kind of shift down a little bit. My facial expression started to kind of droop down a little bit. By door 100, I was sitting on the curb with my head between my legs because everybody told me no. And I thought I was like, I'm a terrible salesman. Like, no one reads a newspaper. Who wants to buy this? Like, I had every excuse in the books. And I learned a very, very big lesson that day. I went back to the office to settle up nothing because I didn't sell anything. But I was like so reluctant to hand him my clipboard. And Jim's like, hey, Jordan, what happened out there? And I said, well, apparently nobody reads a newspaper. Like, I don't know. Everybody sucks. They don't want to buy. I was like, I just want to go home. Take me home. And he said, listen, I don't know if you're going to get this today, but I hopefully one day you'll understand this. And he looks me in the face and he said, the sale doesn't start until the customer says no. And I remember I looked right back at him, Andres, and I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, Jim. Please take me home. And you fast forward.
Give me another Whopper on the way home, but take me home.
You fast forward 4 years later, though, this is where it really kicked in. It took 4 years for me to get it. But I became a sales trainer. I had people in the field now. They were under me. I had new guys. I had guys that have been there a while. One of my new guys comes back. He's out in the field all day. He's got that defeated look. I remember it. He's got that head down. I remembered it. He's got that facial expressions are drooping. Guess what I did? I looked him right in the eye and I said, the sale doesn't start until the customer said no. Right. Because I got it then, so often we are letting the no's get to us, but no equals next opportunity. No is actually the start of the conversation, not the end. And so what I had to really figure out is, all right, I got a few seconds to shine here. So I got to figure out, how do I break the ice as quick as possible, especially when you're doing something door to door, business to business, that's super transactional. How do I set myself apart and relate to this person right when they open that door? And so I had to get good at that. And man, that's paid dividends in every single thing I've done since then.
That's awesome, man. And so it really sounds like you started blazing your own trail with sales, which ultimately, whether you're an entrepreneur, chefpreneur, right, which is what we call, chef entrepreneurs on this podcast, it really does come down. Even, a lot of people don't look at sales as entrepreneurship, but if you're 100% commission based, you're a salesperson, like you got to get out of the cave, go kill something and drag it back home to eat it, right? Like, so you are an entrepreneur. You got to go find your own food. And it sounds like that grit and that determination, but also, again, those practical and tactical things that you were learning through that journey. Really, again, I love your name, Blaze Your Own Trail, right? Because blaze your own trail, that's exactly what it means. And a lot of us are trailblazers. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when I first met you and we started talking, and I mean, that name really resonated with me. And people have heard that phrase, right? Blaze your own trail. But the one thing that I really, really that really speaks to me about it, and hopefully to even, the people that are listening to this right now, is like, it doesn't always just mean that you're blazing your own trail within this industry or within a niche. And for instance, a lot of people that start a business, including myself, and it sounds like, somewhat to you, and it looks like your dad was kind of an entrepreneur as well. But again, a lot of people don't come from like an entrepreneurial family. So I look at it as like, I'm blazing a trail that is going to be for my children, but also it's kind of like, I'm first in my family. My dad had entrepreneurial spirit in him. He owned his own business, but he didn't really have a huge vision. I hate to say it in that way, and I love my dad with all my heart. But I feel like I'm blazing a trail for my family, and so I think that I just love that name, that resonates. And so, give us a couple. Give us a time, I guess you would say, that in your life that you really felt like, okay, it sounds like, okay, I've done some sales, I've done this, I know how to work hard, I'm a hustler, but really when it clicked for you, like, I just can't work for anybody. Like I'm done with that. Like I really now have to blaze my own trail. Like just give us maybe like the moment in your life that there was like a really big shift that you could share with us that honestly could inspire other people listening to this. Maybe there's people out there that are like, they feel like they're right at that cusp. Yep. And I know that sometimes it's a situation that like breaks us a little bit, but let us know, like share that part of it with us to see, I really want you to just really help people that are maybe listening to this and feel like they're right at that turning point as well.
Yeah, man, I would love to give you that access because I think it's super important that, for one, we can be vulnerable with each other. When we're vulnerable, that helps create an emotional relevance that nothing else can create. I think, just you hearing a little bit more about me, you probably feel a little bit more connected to me, right, Andres? Like you feel even deeper connected because having that access into my life. And so, man, there's a perfect scenario. So I was with my company, Gables Residential. I was with them 15 years. And man, what a great ride. I started as a leasing professional, brand new, knew nothing about, all I knew about leasing is I just take someone, show them an apartment, and if they rented it, I got a commission. And the reason I took that job is because they offered benefits. And my now 17-year-old Jaden, who was 6 months old. Wow. And so like all of my kids, all they knew was Gables. All they knew was property management because we had all of them while I was with that company. And man, I saw myself retiring there, honestly, until about 2019, things started to change. We went through a recapitalization. And sometimes when that happens, there can be a culture shift. And we were experiencing that. And around that same time, I started getting active on LinkedIn, creating a video in the morning, creating a video in the evening. And it ruffled some corporate feathers. There were people that had bigger titles than me and in bigger positions that didn't really enjoy seeing my face pop up on their screen, if you know what I mean. And so, there were a couple times when I actually got put on a PIP because they were saying that me showing up and the type of content, for anyone that listens to this, go look at my content. If you don't get inspired, entertained, or empowered by it, then DM me and let me know because I'm doing the wrong thing. And if you're a corporate organization and you have a problem with your people trying to spread light and joy and kindness to the world, like you might want to reevaluate your culture like right now, because that's what my mission is. That's what my goal is. And that's what blazing your own trail is all about. Is it's like, stepping outside of the status quo. So I'm on this PIP, bro, for 60 days. And when I tell you, they threw the book at me, they were like, you've got to be here from 9 to 5 every day, which is like the worst time. The worst time.
What is a PIP? What is a PIP, Jordan? I'm sorry to interrupt you. What is a PIP? Because I'm ignorant.
Yeah. Performance improvement plan. Okay. So
okay. I'm sorry. Okay. I don't know some of the corporate lingo. So I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like, hey, it's like a referral in school, right? You get a referral. When you've done
all right. Now I get it.
And then now it's a written document of what we want you to do for the next X amount of time. So, man, I get it's like we need you to show up 9 to 5. My schedule was like 6 to 3 because I've got kids. I need to get back on this side of town. I live 38 miles away. Now I'm doing 9 to 5 every day in the worst traffic. I did it, and I did it well, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I did it, and I did it well. The next thing was I had to report on Mondays what I was going to do during the week for every day. And on Friday, I had to report if I did it and if I'd missed it, why I missed it. right? I also had to do this. I mean, the list went on. And
Yeah.
if you heard anything about my story so far, I am not that breakable. You're not going to break me with some words on some freaking paper. You know what I'm saying? And so what did I do? I did it, and I did it well. And I crushed that PIP. So here comes 2020. And by this point, January 1st, 20, I launched the Blaze Your Own Trail podcast, not knowing we're about to experience a global pandemic. Okay. But I had also hit 20,000 followers on LinkedIn by that point.
Wow.
So there was some momentum on LinkedIn, launched a podcast, right? Now I'm getting off the PIP. I'm riding into the sunset, it feels like. And then things are moving on. The pandemic hits. I actually, they need me because I'm like the video guy. I'm the guy that's editing content. I'm doing all the sales content. And I had to get activated within 24 hours to teach people how to use Zoom because our organization, it wasn't rolled out. And so I did. In 2020 alone, I created 6 new sales training courses. I created a social media course, a live show. Ready? Because you're asking about breaking points. This is what I did after overcoming a PIP. When I got my bonus at the end of 2020, they paid me 85%. That was my breaking point, Andres. So I went home and I talked to my wife and I prayed and I said, if we're looking, are we ready financially? We're not ready. Are we ready to this? We're not ready. Are we ready to this? We're not ready. But like, I know in my heart of hearts that I can't have the impact that I want to have on people if I stay here. And I don't feel valued here. I've put in 15 years here, and this is the way that they're going to return it to me. So I said, I need to pray about this. I'm going to go to sleep. If I wake up, I'm going to hand this 2-week notice in. And brother, when I woke up that morning, I hate birds, and the birds were chirping, and I was like smiling. Like I had no care. It was like everything was lifted, and I knew it was the time to hand in that 2-week notice. And so, in December of 2020, I handed that notice, and in January 15th, I became a full-time entrepreneur.
Dude, that is incredible. It's funny, like, I know that you're not in the chef world and the cooking world per se, right? You like food. We've established that. I know that for a fact.
Yep.
But it's funny because, again, everything is so relatable because most cooks and chefs that are in this industry, they feel like another cog in the wheel. Like you put your heart, soul, you put 15 years of your life in this organization and to basically shortchange you, right? And it comes down, it's crazy how things come down to a certain moment like that. And I know I felt that way in my career many, many times. It's like, okay, I just saved the company $150,000 and you're worried about $800 worth of overtime this week. And it's like, they would just get on you. And it was crazy. And again, many of the chefs and cooks that are listening to this, Jordan, again, it's like in this industry, you are. It's like they act like you're this and that and like, oh yeah, like our chefs and our team, like we love you. And then you walk in as a chef and there's a brand new $400,000 bar with all these fancy lights and gadgets. And you're like, I've been asking for a raise for 5 years and you guys say there's nothing in the budget. And yet you spend $500,000 on something that just looks the same as what we just had in here with some fancier lights. Like it's crazy. Yeah. This happens a lot to where I think even organizations just in general, I'll throw this out there. I think a lot of organizations invest not in people, unfortunately, and they invest in all these other things that they think is going to move the ball forward, and it's not. And me and you know, because we share a very similar mindset, we share a very similar culture that it's all about people. In my movement, Chefpreneur movement, and Blazing Your Own Trail, it's all about, like you said, it's all about inspiring people. So it's funny because my podcast, I talk about educating, inspiring, and motivating you, right? Because again, there has to be a voice in every industry that's sharing this, because this is really where success comes from. I really believe that. Now, one thing that you mentioned, which was really awesome, is you mentioned LinkedIn, right? And for those of you that don't know, that are listening to this podcast, like he is one of the top profiles in LinkedIn now currently. And what's crazy about that, Jordan, is that and I'll be very transparent here, with some of my higher level mentees in my protege program, we've actually dove in even more into strategic partnerships in finding those on LinkedIn. And there's so many little tools and tricks that you could do in LinkedIn. But if maybe I'll have to have you on the podcast again really just to maybe share a few like really solid tips. But if you could share one tip, like for those chefs and cooks that have a personal chef business that are already chefpreneurs, or maybe, I know one of the biggest questions we get asked, like, how do I find more clients? How do I find more clients? And I don't want to get into that. That's a whole nother podcast episode, because I talk about there's tons of foundational principles you have to put into place first before you really just go out and start.
We just do a 12 episode series. That's what we need to do.
There you go. We just do a 12 episode series. We just need to do something like that. But what is maybe one big tip you could give anybody, especially chefpreneurs that already maybe have a personal chef business and like, you know what, I want to attract more organic leads. I want like people to know who I am in my area. How is a way they can do that either on LinkedIn or, maybe camp out in LinkedIn? Because I think LinkedIn is really, it's growing, of course, but I really believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's really untapped. Yeah. And I think within our industry, especially as chefpreneur, like it's a world of knowledge. So is there one big tip or takeaway that the chefs listening to this right now can really take and implement, like starting today?
Yeah, and I'll do you one better. I'm going to give you multiple tips, because I think
we go.
Tip, I love it. One tip, bro, is not going to move.
Over deliver, baby. Over deliver.
One tip is not going to move the needle. So this is a point in the show, folks, where you grab a notepad, okay, grab a pen, you grab a pencil, you grab your iPhone, you grab something, because if you actually implement what I'm going to tell you, it's going to produce positive results and it's going to move the needle. But if you do nothing that I tell you, nothing's going to happen. All right. So you've got a choice here. It's up to you. And the good news is when he distributes this, you can rewind it so that you can make sure you're not missing this. Right. So here's the number one tip. Look at your LinkedIn profile. If we're talking about personal profile, look at that profile and look at that image that you've got in the background. It's called a banner image. All right. That is a billboard, folks. I don't know if you know how expensive billboards are that are on the side of the road or the freeway. They're not cheap. And LinkedIn gives you one for free. And I can guarantee you that most people watching or listening to this have either the gray one that they provide you, or they've got something on there, maybe a picture or something that truly doesn't advertise for you, truly doesn't highlight what you're up to, who you are, who you serve, what's a call to action you want people to do. So that's the first step is if you don't have one, you need one, and it's got to explain a few things. It's got to have a good picture of you. It's got to have, what you actually do, who you serve, and have a clear call to action on what you want people to do next. Because again, folks, that is massive and prime real estate that everybody gets for free, whether you have LinkedIn free or premium or Sales Navigator or anything. So that's tip number one. Good. Tip number two, take a look at your picture. Is it you from college? If it is, you better change it. Is it you with a suit and tie on because that's how you used to dress 3 years ago? If it is, you need to change it. Guess who it should look like? It should look like you today. Like, what do you look like? Mine shouldn't be with me with like one of these Henleys on. Yours should be you with the Chefpreneur shirt on, because that's your brand. Right. And if your picture is not a true representation of you, you're basically catfishing people. You're not showing up as your true self. So background image, number one, picture, number two, number three. We ready? You guys with me here? All right. Number three
hit it.
Is that tagline image or headline image, whatever you want to call it. That is where you have an opportunity to put a service statement. If you go look at mine, it says something like, I help service providers build authority and monetize social media. That's my service statement. It's, who I help, what I do. You also want to add some keywords that are relevant to you or your industry. So I have things like author, small plug, Brand Sharks is coming out within 60 days. Make sure you go look for it on Amazon. And, nice, podcast host, speaker. These are things that people, when they search these keywords, that I will be found and associated with. All right. So you want to have a service statement, some keywords relevant. And then I also put some type of call to action. Mine says, follow me for positive content, because I want people to follow me if they like positive content.
Pretty straightforward.
All right. So those are the first three. The next one, we're actually going to slide down to that about summary. Okay. So this about summary, the biggest mistake I see, Andres, is people actually take their resume, they copy it and they paste it and put it in their about summary. That's the biggest mistake I see, because your resume belongs down in your experience section, right? That's where
Yeah.
your resume
Okay.
belongs. The about summary is about you. It's about what the heck you've done, what you've been through. This is where you get the opportunity. Think about it like a podcast interview, like how I shared a little bit of my story. That's what people need to hear. People need to hear where you've been, what you've gone through. Don't be afraid to be a little vulnerable and tell your story, but just make sure you're comfortable telling as much as you want. It's really up to you. But the more you can share your message and your vulnerability with people, we can relate to that. I can't relate to all the top certifications, and like not everyone can relate to that stuff. But we can relate to, hey, I've experienced something. Yeah, this happened to me. Hey, this is how I got through it. We can relate to that. So make sure that you're telling a story, and make sure at the end of that story, you do highlight some of what you do from a business context, but also more importantly, that you've got a clear call to action on what you want people to do next. All right. And so that may look like, click on my featured section to download my free resource. All right. So the final step, right, number 5, is add your best link, your one-stop shop, the top of the funnel item. Add that to your featured section, because what we've just done in that about summary is we've given context into who we are. We've told a story. We've given them some business context, and we added a call to action that said, click on our featured section. So now go add something there. And so if your profile is optimized, which is literally the manifest I just built for you, is how to optimize your profile. If your profile is optimized, you're going to increase your visibility, your opportunity. All of it is going to increase. So hopefully that's helpful.
Man, that's beyond helpful, man. That's called over delivering right there. Well, I literally wrote all that down right now, just to let you guys know. And before this podcast publishes, I'm going to go fix my LinkedIn so I don't look like a doof when this thing releases out. And I wanted to just leave you with this last thing. I mean, Jordan, honestly, like, first of all, just thank you again for being on this podcast. And thank you for sharing that wealth of knowledge that you've learned through the School of Hard Knocks, but also, again, with the probably the hours you've spent posting content and working the LinkedIn kind of, I guess you would say, train. And again, thank you for sharing those tips. And I want to go ahead and give you an opportunity because, as I said earlier in the podcast, Jordan is not only a good friend, but he's actually one of the coaches that we're bringing on to help us with our high-level program and Protege, to help them really optimize their social media profiles and really be able to use some amazing organic marketing techniques on social media to be able to attract high-paying clients for their personal chef businesses. And so, Jordan, our relationship is going to continue to evolve, and I'm just excited for you to get your hands dirty, as you will, with our Protege students. So for that being said, I want to just be able to give you an opportunity to make some plugs. I know that you have a book coming out, right? Yep. And you also, again, have a podcast and all that. So just let everybody know how they can interact with your content, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thanks so much for the opportunity. Anytime I can get a chance to have a platform to share with the hopes to inspire, it's an honor, honestly. So, man. So check out the show, Blaze Your Own Trail podcast. If you just go tell Alexa or Siri, play the Blaze Your Own Trail podcast, they will play it for you on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Music. We're on all the platforms. You can also go to byotpodcast.com to listen to past and future episodes. And if you want to connect, I love connecting with people on social. All my handles on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok are at Jordan J. Mendoza. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Jordan Mendoza. Send me a message, say hello, don't be shy, reach out. If there's any way I can add value to you, that's what I'm all about.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, Jordan, for being on the podcast today, brother. I can't wait. And we'll have to do another episode, man. You over-delivered on this. We might have to do a whole episode of where we just dive into it. I didn't even get to my
pivotal moments yet, so we got to.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, I mean, I think this might just be like a part 2 in the making coming up. So, guys, stay tuned. If you guys want to hear more from Jordan, I know we're going to have you back on the show, brother. And again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And, man, I can't wait to have you on again, man.
Thank you.
All right. God bless. Take care. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and we'll see you in another episode soon.